Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose, and those rumors were true after all. We have been talking about this over the last couple of weeks, but it did seem like PlayStation was planning something big for the month of March, and well, that has now since been confirmed. They have officially announced PlayStation's next State of Play, and it's coming rather soon, or actually it's coming this week, tomorrow in fact, so we're going to talk about that later on in the video and what you should possibly expect to appear here at this State of Play. Now also, a secret Xbox project has been uncovered, and this really just adds to the growing list of a lot of games that Xbox has in development right now. This one though is coming from Bethesda, and it really just seems like that acquisition is paying off for them, as they really seem like they have more games in development than ever before, so we will go over that one as well. First though, unfortunately, we do have a canceled Nintendo Switch game to talk about, though I don't think that this is necessarily overly surprising, and that is for Pillars of Eternity 2. This was confirmed by the publisher Versus Evil, where they just simply said, hey there, unfortunately after much deliberation, we have decided not to move forward with Pillars of Eternity Deadfire for the Nintendo Switch. Now, they didn't exactly clarify as to the reason why they decided to cancel this game for the Nintendo Switch, but I think fans kind of understand. If you did play the first Pillars of Eternity on the Nintendo Switch, there's a good chance that you might have been left disappointed. While in theory, Pillars of Eternity on the Switch, it sounds fantastic. I mean, this is a great RPG, and it seems like it would fit perfectly in the Nintendo Switch library, but Versus Evil never really could get that game running properly on the Switch. It had a lot of technical problems and various bugs on the Switch that they just never seemingly could get fixed. Even after several patches, Pillars of Eternity did continue to run into problems, so I think with all of that in mind, it's not necessarily overly surprising to see Pillars of Eternity be canceled for the Switch. It is very unfortunate because this is a good RPG, and in theory, it would be amazing to play on the Switch, but unfortunately, Versus Evil just could not get the port working properly. Next up, we do have some DLC here that I think is going to make some of you Yakuza fans out there very happy. I myself, I love the Yakuza franchise, and that includes, of course, Judgment and Lost Judgment. Lost Judgment did release last year, and for the most part, this game was pretty much universally praised for its story, its characters, and overall just the improvements that it made over the original Judgment game. But for those that's already played this game and are maybe looking forward to the next Yakuza project, well, they did announce a nice little DLC expansion here that might tide you over, which is actually sounding pretty interesting. This will be the Kaito Files, which will be releasing later this month on March 28th, so this is only a few short weeks away. You will be playing as the sidekick Kaito, which I think is already going to be interesting because he's a pretty good character and everything, but here it's going to be showing a little bit more on his backstory as a whole. They did say that this is set after the events of Lost Judgment, but what the premise is about here is he is searching for his ex and then runs into his teenage son. The story then revolves around the two teaming up together to find the truth behind his ex's disappearance. I actually think that the premise here sounds pretty interesting, though hopefully it's as good as it actually sounds, because it is going to be a little bit more on a pricier side of things. This is going to go for $30, so hopefully it's going to be worth it, but I do like Kaito as a character, and it will be interesting to see how that dynamic works with his son here searching for his ex. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, though, is that if you do own Lost Judgment Ultimate Edition, you will have access to the Kaito Files, and you will not have to pay anything extra. Next up, we did get a nice little update regarding the Switch OLED that might alleviate some of that concern heading up to launch, and that is regarding burn-in. Because this device is using an OLED screen, which does have a bit of a reputation, especially with some of the earlier OLED screens, but they do have a reputation for burn-in after prolonged use. So because of that, there has been some concern among the community about the longevity when it comes to the Switch OLED. Now, in the past, I have said on this channel that I was not overly concerned about this because OLED screens have improved over the years to kind of keep this stuff from happening, but nonetheless, I mean, people are still spending a lot of money. This device is $350, so there's going to be some questions out there, and that is understandable. Thanks to a YouTuber by the name of WolfDenno, some of those questions have actually been answered. Now, I'm going to leave a link to his video below because it is a very, very well-made video, and he did a fantastic job with it. But basically what he did is he left his Switch OLED on for a prolonged period of time just to see how long it would take before it would get burnt in. So yeah, Zelda Breath of the Wild running on pretty much a static image for months in and months out, and after 3 months, 1,800 hours of being stuck on this image, the Switch OLED did not receive burn-in at all, which is very impressive alone because that's really an unrealistic situation. People are not going to play their Switch OLED for 1,800 hours straight, but even then, the Switch OLED did not receive any type of burn-in. But now he has once again given us another update for the Switch OLED, and this will be 6 months later, which is 3,600 hours of gameplay, and now it has received its first signs of burn-in. It doesn't seem to be anything too drastic, but there is burn-in there. But again, this is after 3,600 hours, which, again, this is just not a realistic situation for gamers. So I think that this just kind of shows you that the Switch OLED is unlikely to get burn-in under normal circumstances. What I'm just going to kind of say for myself, though, is that if you are on the fence on whether or not you want the Switch OLED, I've had the Switch OLED since launch, and I can honestly say that I look so much more forward to playing the Switch OLED than I ever did with the original Switch. I do play my games primarily in handheld mode, and they just look so much better with an OLED screen. I'm going to put up a picture here just kind of comparing the Switch OLED to a Steam Deck as an example, and you can clearly see a difference here. So if you've ever been on the fence for this device, you're starting to see that it will have some longevity, and the screen really is just absolutely beautiful. Let's go and talk about PlayStation though, because they just announced their next State of Play, which will be taking place tomorrow, Wednesday on March 9th at 2 p.m. Pacific time or 5 p.m. Eastern time. It will be roughly 20 minutes long, which gives him plenty of time to announce various games here. And that's really kind of the big question here. What should you expect? And they do give you some hints here as to what you should expect and also what you should not expect as well. They did confirm here that there will not be any type of update on PlayStation VR 2 titles or hardware at this event. So if you are into virtual reality, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer before you see VR2, but if you're just simply into the core of PlayStation consoles, then it does sound like this event might have some exciting announcements. They do say 2 very specific things here that kind of narrows things down and makes it sound really interesting, and that would be that it will include new reveals and eye-catching updates for the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 titles, but then they also go on to say that it will also have a special focus on highlighting great games coming from some of our beloved Japanese publishers. Now, that one right there is the one that kind of narrows things down a little bit more significantly, because there's really going to be a few different publishers here that you're going to automatically think about. And that would be publishers such as Square Enix, there's also Konami, and Capcom. Those are the 3 that's immediately going to come to mind, and all 3 actually has some big titles in development that they need to reveal sometime here soon. You take a look at somebody like Capcom, and we've been hearing a lot about this Resident Evil 4 remake for a little while now. In fact, here recently it was being reported that Resident Evil 4 remake was going to be revealed sometime in early 2022, so could they possibly reveal this over at the PlayStation event? I mean, Resident Evil has always had a strong affinity with PlayStation, so they could announce that Resident Evil 4 remake at this event here. Now, I'm not going to say that that's a guarantee or anything like that, but I do think that it is a possibility. I've also seen some fans speculate that Capcom might show Street Fighter 6 here, though really I don't think that that will be the case, and the reason I say that is because Capcom did say that we're going to see more on this game this summer. It's not quite summer though, so I wouldn't get my hopes up on that one too much, but another publisher to definitely keep an eye on would be Square Enix. Sony and Square Enix has a very good relationship, and we already know that they are working on a couple of PlayStation console timed exclusives being Forspoken, and obviously the big one here is Final Fantasy 16. And the thing about Final Fantasy 16 is that they did say that they wanted to reveal more on Final Fantasy 16 this spring. Now, technically, spring is a little over a week from now, but it is pretty close, so maybe we could get that big reveal for Final Fantasy 16 here, and then maybe even possibly a release date. That would be absolutely huge, but I am being a little hopeful on that one. Konami, though, is an interesting one as well, because I think that they're kind of the wild card here. We have been hearing for a little while now that Konami might be bringing back some of their bigger IP. There's been a lot of rumors about about this here in recent years, and I mean, we've heard from Konami themselves. They did say that they are working on some bigger titles that they would like to reveal sometime in the future. So maybe they could announce something here. We have been hearing a lot about Silent Hill very specifically, and this would be a great place to announce a game like that. We've also heard the possibility that Metal Gear Solid could be returning, and once again, Sony has a good affinity with both of these franchises, and it'd be a great place to announce games like this. Again, I'm not saying that any of this is going to happen, but these are definitely possibilities. Beyond that, though, this event is not necessarily limited to just Japanese games. They did say that there's going to be new reveals and updates for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, and this could also include games like God of War Ragnarok, which is their biggest first-party game that is coming out, hopefully sometime this year, and this would be a great place to reveal a little bit more about that game and a possible release date confirming 2022. That would go a long way in getting the community really excited by just simply giving us a confirmation that God of War Ragnarok will release in 2022. The good news, though, is that we're really not going to have to wait too long to find out about all this because, again, this event will be taking place tomorrow, and as always, I will do a follow-up video talking about all the things that happened at that event. It's always fun to make some predictions ahead of these events, though, and let me know some of your predictions for tomorrow's PlayStation State of Play. On to our final topic of the day, though. A secret Xbox project has now been uncovered, and this one is coming from one of the Bethesda studios. The question then becomes which studio, which we'll kind of get to here in just a moment, but all of this was discovered thanks to Scalzi TV, which spotted a recent trademark application filed for Spyteam this year, January of 2022. Now that's really interesting because this is not the first time that we have seen Spyteam. The first time that Spyteam was actually heard about was back in 2018, so this does signify that this game has been in development for a little while now, and that is important because its announcement might be imminent, especially with this trademark being filed here in January of 2022. The question then becomes, though, what is this game and who's developing it? That's where things get a little bit more dicey, but there are a couple of different Bethesda studios that are prime candidates that might possibly be working on this game, one of which would be Roundhouse Studios, which was acquired by Bethesda back in 2019. And prior to that acquisition, they were apparently working on a game that was linked to some type of major comic license. It was being described as some type of PvPvE game, so there is some type of element with team-based gameplay here, and well, the trademark is Spyteam, so that kind of signifies that it could be a team-based game. So Roundhouse Studio might be a studio to kind of keep an eye on here with whatever this major comic license is. And I think that right there is going to be interesting alone. If you are into comics, then, I mean, let your mind run here and what this could possibly be. Hopefully with whatever it is, though, we will get the announcement sometime here soon. With them working on whatever this game is for maybe the last 3 or 4 years, it probably is getting a little bit more imminent, to say the least. Now, another possibility here would be ZeniMax Studios, the studio behind The Elder Scrolls Online, and they have been very public about them working on a brand new AAA game. Now, whether this big AAA game is linked to Spyteam, that remains to be seen, but they do absolutely have something in development. It's rumored to be an RTS right now, but that has not officially been confirmed, but we do at least know that they are working on some type of big AAA project. Now, another studio that fans are kind of looking at would be Bethesda Austin. This is yet another studio that Bethesda acquired back in 2018, and the thing about them is that they were previously working on some type of hero shooter. So some people do believe that Bethesda Austin could be bringing back that hero shooter here. I am still kind of leaning on the side of this Roadhouse Studio game, though. That's what my bet would be on, but you know, all of this is just purely speculation. I think what you can really take away from this, though, is that Bethesda, they have a lot of games in development. They seem to have more games in development than ever before, and this ranges quite a bit. I mean, you're talking about upcoming games like Redfall and Starfield. There's also Ghostwire Tokyo that's coming out this month. And then Tango Gameworks are apparently working on a second title. You have a Roadhouse Studios game here, ZeniMax Studios. They're working on a big AAA title, and really the list just kind of goes on and on. They do have a lot of games in development, and you can really see that this Xbox acquisition is definitely paying off for them. Before we go, let's go take a look at the poll of the day. 343 Industries did here recently announce the content for Season 2 of Halo Infinite, and this includes things such as 3 new game modes and 2 maps, one for Arena and then one for big team battles. So I wanted to ask you all, do you think that 2 new maps and 3 new game modes for Season 2 in Halo Infinite is enough content? And based off the results here, you all do not think that this is enough. Only 24% of you said yes, while 64% of you said no. And I do find myself agreeing in this situation. The thing is that I really like Halo Infinite. I think it's got a great single player. I think it has an absolutely fantastic competitive multiplayer as well. But in terms of content, it could use a little bit more content with its multiplayer. I already felt like it was kind of lacking in terms of maps in general. So I was hoping with its first update or the second season that it would get more than just 2 maps, or really just 1 if you only play arena mode, or just 1 if you play big team battles. You know, it depends on what type of playstyle you really go with. So I feel like that this really isn't a lot of content. Now, hopefully in future seasons they do bring out more content, and I think that one thing that I'm kind of looking at is that they have been putting some resources on things such as cooperative mode and forge mode, but once they get those finished up, maybe they can start to put more resources on making some more maps as an example. So I'm hoping that is the overall situation here, but at the end of the day, and like I continue to say about Halo Infinite, it's still an absolutely excellent game. I just hope that we get more frequent content in the future. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you like the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.